Let's go back in time to the early NES days. As in, really early. As in, black box games. You know the ones. Those games that were released in those black boxes with the identical looking designs. Well, I guess not really identical, since there's enough differentiating features to be able to tell the games apart. Okay, enough of this. Let's get on to the game. Kung Fu is about as simple as it can get. You play as the Lost Simpsons character Thomas, out to save the kidnapped girl Sylvia. Thomas must kick and punch his way through 5 floors of thugs to reach her. But once you save her, the game just repeats, but with a harder difficulty. You know, typical early game stuff. Gameplay can't get any easier. Unusually, you start on the right side of the screen and have to move to the left. The game alternates which direction you move. A always punches, B always kicks. You can crouch and do attacks, and also jump to attack, although jumping punches are pretty much useless. In fact, jumping kicks aren't usually effective either, except for some small specific scenarios you may run into. So most of the time, your feet are going to be planted on the ground. Enemies will have no problems catching up to you if you don't move, so you're always going to want to be moving forward. There aren't a lot of types of enemy forces, and they usually attack in some unconventional ways. They hug you? Well, the purplish guys do. They don't throw punches, they get close, they lift their arms, and they grab you in a bear hug. I don't know what else to say about this attack. The little guys will also grab you, but they have another attack. Since you have to duck down to strike them, at times they'll just leap and bounce off the top of your head. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it will stun you for a split second, opening you up to some more lethal attacks, such as the knife-throwing guys. When you get grabbed, you have to mash buttons in order to escape. You need to be careful though, because as long as the enemy is holding on you, your health will drain. On floors 2 and 4, there are some other enemies that are thrown into the mix as well. Random debris will fall from the upper levels on floor 2, and each of the 3 types of pots will spawn a different enemy. The one will stop and hover in the air, and then explode, throwing fragments straight down and at angles. The light-colored pot will shatter to reveal a fire-breathing dragon that is avoided simply by ducking. The green vase will spawn a snake that will crawl quickly towards you. Each pot can be destroyed by striking it before it hits the ground, but it might be safer to simply avoid them. Being damaged by either the device as it falls, or the enemy itself will take off a third of your life, which seems kinda drastic when knives that strike you will take off a fraction of that. On floor 4, the only enemy other than the normal huggers are ladybugs. At least I can only assume they are ladybugs because they sure look like it. I don't know, maybe there's some sort of other lethal creature that I don't know about that looks like ladybugs, but I'm gonna call them ladybugs. Either way, they're much easier to defeat than the floor 2 unique enemies, because the placement of them are much easier to observe and memorize. The game may seem simple. I mean, enemies that hug you, ones that bounce off your head, snakes and ladybugs? Come on! But no, it's surprisingly challenging. You have a health bar, but you'll notice that can be dropped quickly. Enemies won't stop coming, so your best bet is just to keep moving towards the boss. The only time I backtracked was to take out a knife thrower, so he didn't stalk me the entire time. And the bosses? They hit hard. Many of them can kill you in 2 or 3 hits. The first boss has a stick that he'll whack you over the head with. The second one throws boomerangs. The third boss is a tall, buff dude that punches and kicks with authority. The fourth boss is, in my opinion, the most difficult one, as he is a short magician that throws fireballs at you. The only way he can be damaged is by ducking and punching, but if you're not careful, he'll literally lose his head, and you'll have to wait for a new one to be created for him. It's a bit strange, but this is the same game where you're being attacked by bugs and snakes, so The final boss, although I only got to him once, is a Kung Fu master, able to evade your attacks and even regenerate some of his health if you're not able to hit him. I almost had him on my first attempt to record footage. Almost. I remember years ago I was able to complete the game with ease, but I must be really rusty as I really struggled to get past stage 2. The pots falling require pinpoint timing if you wish to kick them out of the air, and that's when I realized I was being dumb and should have just evaded them. Getting overwhelmed by the huggers is easy to happen, based on how they just don't stop coming at you. I was surprised I was able to get to the final boss after a while on the one attempt, but couldn't beat him. The graphics of the game actually still look pretty darn good. As I said, Thomas has a weird Simpsons skin color going for him, but he doesn't take anything away from the game. Sure, it's all very early era NES, but for the day, it looked good. The scrolling is smooth, and the NPCs all have a respectable amount of detail, and the color palette is fairly pleasing to look at. The sounds are actually pretty impressive for the time as well. You'll hear Thomas hawing it out as he attacks, and the bosses will laugh if they are the ones that defeat you. The only thing I don't get is why the 1-up sound you hear at 50,000 points sounds like a doorbell. The music isn't bad either, but it's a shame it's the same track repeated on every stage. That's Kung Fu for you. For an early NES game, there's only so much to talk about, but it's still a fantastic game in which the first loop can be completed in 10 minutes or less. If you get really good at the game, it keeps cycling, so the challenge is definitely there. Of course, with the basic gameplay, it won't appeal to everyone, but if you're a retro game fan like me, this one should be on your bucket list. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.